next session that we're going to jump into is why emotions matter and how to navigate them. Our first speaker is Michelle Rowlett, and Michelle is a social worker who brings nearly 25 years of experience in healthcare working across both inpatient and outpatient settings. After earning her master's degree from the University of Washington in 2000, she dedicated her career to improving the lives of individuals with chronic kidney disease. Currently, Michelle works or serves as the social worker supervisor and CKD program lead at Puget Sound Kidney Centers. Very good. That's a bit of a tongue twister for me, but I made it through it. Where she combines clinical expertise with leadership. In addition to co-chairing the Pacific Northwest CNSW chapter, she contributes to several national committees that promote kidney disease awareness and professional education. Passionate about teaching, Michelle has been a practicum instructor for the MSW students for over 2 decades and has developed educational programs for people living with kidney disease and their families for more than 15 years. Way to go. I can't wait to hear your perspective on emotions and how to navigate them. And the floor is yours.
Slideshow to you guys?
It certainly does. Excellent.
Perfect. Wonderful. Okay. So I'm getting somewhere started. Perfect. So I'm going to talk about emotions and why they matter. Great subject for a licensed therapist and a social worker. And so a couple of things I want to talk about today is just the important role emotions play in our lives all the time, every day. Some different ways of managing emotions, coping strategies, and just ways to express feelings in a way that feels right to us and hopefully feels good or positive for us. All in just a few minutes here. Hopefully I'll kind of get that going or get that done. So what are emotions anyway? So really, they're just the way we respond to stimuli, things going on around us. Very simple. Our bodies respond to what's happening. And most of us experience a fair amount of different emotions throughout the day. So back in the 70s, there was a psychologist named Paul Ekman, and he thought basically there were 6 main emotions that everyone experienced, no matter where you're from. We kind of started out with that idea. So happiness, sadness, fear, disgust, anger, and surprise was the core. We have since evolved and understand that there are actually quite a few more emotions that we experience. And so a tool that we like to use when working with people, and really recently I was at this thing called Edge of Amazing, a conference here locally. And one of the groups that works with adolescents and teens had one of these. It's like an emotions wheel or a feelings wheel. There's, different people make sort of a little different version of these you may have seen, but they had one as a sticker and it had a texture on it, sort of having one of those secondary purposes where you could fidget with it, but that you could stick on your phone or you could stick on your laptop or, a table. And so the purpose of these is that if you can put words to what's going on in your body, it can be really helpful to then figure out how to navigate going forward, what to do with that emotion. Because sometimes you're feeling something, but it's hard to figure out, well, what exactly is that going on, inside me? And so if you look at this wheel here, for example, I was talking to a new patient who just started dialysis the other day, for example, and they said they were feeling sad. If I take this tool up, we looked at that together and they were like, well, actually what I'm really feeling when you kind of dig deeper into this is I'm feeling lonely and powerless. That's what they told me. Lonely because all of a sudden coming into the center more often, they were feeling like they weren't seeing as much of their friends. And powerless because they felt like all of a sudden they had to come into this schedule and they kind of didn't have a say in what was going on. And so their life had just become a little less in their control. And having a conversation around what was going on with the emotions was helpful in that then it was like, okay, well, what can we do with those emotions? Is there anything we can do to address that or, change that? Or, what could we do? Or at least A, you're aware of like what really is going on there, and B, is there something we can do? Is there a support group? Is there something we can do in the routine? Is there something about the schedule we can change? But so that's just an example, I guess, of how if you put more specific words to what your emotion is, it can be more helpful in terms of having more control over what's going on and better understanding what might be helpful to deal with that emotion. Emotions are really important because they're giving us signals and they're giving others signals. I mean, they're there to help us interact with the environment and what's going on, and they help us get ready to do something, or they cause us to do something, and that can influence the situation and that can influence our health. So, for example, a pretty dramatic sort of circumstance would be, let's say you're hiking out in the woods. We do that here a lot in the Northwest where I am, and let's say you encounter a grizzly bear, a bear on your hike. That's something we learn about when you're learning how to go hiking, is what do you do if you run into a bear? So that triggers an emotion in me of fear, excitement, anxiety, like a lot of, whoa, my heart races, a lot of adrenaline, that fight or flight response, kind of sharpening my focus, like for survival. So there's, some emotions going on there, and that gets me ready to act. Communicate something, do something in this situation. So, one of the things you do is like you raise your arms up and I'm a human. I'm not a prey, hoping the bear's not going to go after me. And I'm helping me hopefully de-escalate the situation. And as I'm doing that, hopefully my problem solving skills are in my brain reminding me not to run. Hopefully I'm remembering, like, do I have bear spray on me? Do I remember what to do if the bear comes at me? Like, don't run, just lay there and try and like stay still. And, all of these things have something to do with like the emotions that I'm having and then my ability to respond to those emotions. And that will influence my health. Depending on what I do there, something's going to go better or worse for me. And so, in that situation, if I navigate that well, then hopefully I will end with some relief, some gratitude, some positive emotions that will help me recover and help my, health, and my well-being sort of boost my recovery after that situation is over. But emotions, obviously are pretty important. And then what we do with them are pretty important in terms of like what happens later in the outcome. So when you're dealing with something like kidney disease, that's compounds whatever's already going on for you, right? Because there's these other things that come into play because you then are facing, let's say, some life changes, right? The schedule I was talking about with my patient that just started, maybe some self-esteem issues, feeling like a burden to family, feeling maybe like your social life has changed, maybe feeling loss or loneliness of losing that, connection with friends, maybe physical symptoms. Anything with a chronic illness usually brings on some additional depression and anxiety too. That's just a really well-known fact. And so that can be challenging. Maybe that affects your work life too. And then a lot of people may crash into dialysis or crash into needing care. And that can cause a lot of fear and anxiety and really impact life. And then if anyone already has a pre-existing mental health condition, any kind of depression, anxiety, PTSD, like anything else already going on, those get exacerbated when you deal with any new health issue, quite often. And so these things just are like this compounding factor when you're dealing with how you're doing with your emotions, and adding extra factors to them. I have had an uncle who had schizophrenia, and he had paranoia, and he had paranoia with a fear of machines. And then he got diagnosed with end-stage kidney disease. And that was an existing mental health problem that then obviously got exacerbated and compounded the problem because the machine that needed to take care of his life was something he was greatly terrified of because he believed machines were, put things into them and spied on him and, was doing bad things to him and his body. So we often, before that happened, were called to come over and plug the TV back in because he'd unplugged it, or go check and see if they're okay because the phone was unplugged, or, see what was going on because there were these great fears of the machines. And so the dialysis machine was really difficult because this is a machine to sustain his life, but also a machine that he thought was going to kill him. And so, just that's an, extreme case where you're dealing with a mental health problem. But, anytime you've got something else going on and then you add these other factors into it, you really can have a lot of challenging emotions that can be hard to manage. So coming into play then, what can happen is that emotions aren't always accurate indicators of reality, and they can lead us astray. So sometimes what we feel or what we're thinking and believing aren't always reliable. They're not always like accurate. So sometimes we can get these really intense, overwhelming feelings, and they might lead us to make some decisions or have some thoughts that aren't accurate. So in my bear example, I could have panicked and ran, which would be a response that people do, but that's not the best response, because we know that bears tend to chase people and maul them when they run. And so we're trained here where I live to not do that, but sometimes fear and anxiety and all those overwhelming feelings can overtake us, and we can respond in a different way than we should. And so in this case, what kind of what I'm saying is just that emotions can take us down bad paths sometimes, and it's totally understandable given all the different things that come into play, but that can really then impact the way relationships go. It can lead to conflicts and misunderstandings, and it can really impact like work, and it can strain our relationships, and just overall it can really lead to increased stress, decreased quality of life, decreased physical health. Like, it's just really problematic. And so it's really critical to figure out how to deal with our emotions in a better way, so that we don't go down those roads if possible. And so one big mistake people make is they try to get rid of those negative emotions. They try to like shove them down, or pretend like they're not having them, or push them away, or hide them. And that isn't really the best way to go. So that's the big mistake. That's the big mistake a lot of us make, for a lot of reasons, feeling like that burden or that shame, or all that stuff. And then just kind of the way we're taught to be is like, you're supposed to be happy. And really the better way to go is the Buddhist view. Emotions aren't good or bad. They're part of life. We really suffer more when we try to bury all that stuff down, and it's going to come out anyway somehow. So it's better to kind of just accept that we're gonna have feelings that don't feel so good sometimes. That's part of reality. We can't control everything. And when we try to shove those things down or put them aside or do something else, we call it emotional dysregulation in therapy terms, but it basically is just, not doing well managing our emotions. It comes out somewhere else. So, it might be like, you see road rage, or you see people like yell at a grocery store checker, and you're like, what in the world? They're just like putting your groceries in a bag. What are you doing? Someone yells at, like, I see someone yell at the tech on the floor, and you're like, they just like put the pen down, or, it's like not necessarily for a reasonable reason. It's just it's misdirected feelings. So sometimes you'll experience these really big mood swings, or like ongoing conflicts, or, you'll see people like even trying to cope with like just excessive like Netflix binging, or overuse of substances, or eating a pint of ice cream, or anything to try and deal with like the feelings that we don't want to have, those emotions, by like doing something else. It's not the best way to manage emotions, but obviously like we all have gone through that and done that, because it's hard to figure out kind of what to do sometimes with our emotions, but really keeping our emotions in balance is the key to feeling better, and having like sort of a better experience. We're going to feel more balanced, have a little bit more sense of control, and it'll probably protect our relationships more, if we can try to have some calm, in these relationships. So keys to managing emotions start with our body. So calming our body. And so there's a sense you get when you're starting to feel those emotions that are like roughing you up, right? And sometimes you got to learn therapy tricks from going to a therapist, but sometimes you can just do this on your own. You try things out and see what works. But some people really find that cold things work. So a sip of cold water, a cold shower, holding something cold on your neck, cold air, taking a walk outside, literally cooling down the body can really help. Sometimes it's petting an animal, sitting, they say animals are therapeutic. Sometimes that's really helpful. Sometimes just some like really calming music, or even some people sway. I've had patients that will hum to themselves, just like something soothing. Some people that just kind of like rock themselves. It's like self-soothing behavior, they call it. All those things can really calm your nervous system down, and you have to calm your body down. Deep breaths. They say to take deep breaths for a reason. It really does calm your body. You got to calm your body before you can interact with those harder emotions. And then you have to accept again that it's okay to have those emotions that don't feel as good. Um, and try and think about it as like your brain's trying to help you, it's not trying to hurt you. So, be able to accept that those emotions are there and that you're having them, and maybe try to think about it from a different viewpoint, right? That, maybe this isn't all out to get you. Maybe this is just something that's happening. And then what can you do now, right? We're not in control of everything. We're not. We're in control of some things. So where are the ways that we can have control? What can we do now? Try to find that focal point, and then in that area, like, what can we do now? And in that arena, try to focus on that, because there's only so much control we have, right? And then figuring out ways to express your emotions. And then this is something that you got to practice. So, a lot of people work with their social worker or work with a therapist to find ways to practice expressing emotions. And
Well, thank you for
a
those
lot of the
wonderful
times it starts
gems.
with
I
talking
mean,
to yourself
that
and,
was very helpful,
trying to talk to yourself in a
and
positive way,
great
because we can be
comments
really
from the
our own
audience.
worst
Thanking you.
critics, and we can be, kind of hard
And
on ourselves
Renal Support
and not
Network
always
does have
think
a
we
support
deserve
group
kindness, but being kind to
twice a
yourself and
month.
talking to
And I
yourself
see
kindly
in our
really helps you
audience we
talk to
have some of
others
those
kindly.
people who
And
attend.
when
So
you
hello,
open up
everybody. I'm glad you
with
came.
kind of skipping to the end here, there's a thing called a harsh startup that we talk about in therapy. And when you start an interaction with somebody saying, I can't believe this is happening, what are you doing? Versus, hey, I'm a little concerned about, you're going to have a better interaction with somebody if you don't start into them with like this harsh tone and harsh wording. It immediately sets someone on the defense. And even if, you're really upset, taking the time to slow back down and think, well, okay, if I approach someone like that, what am I trying to achieve? What am I in control of? Well, you're not going to get anywhere if you do that. And it sounds really logical, but in the moment, like, it's kind of critical to remember that even if you got to wait until the like next time you see them to have the conversation, it's better if you wait, practice the conversation, practice it going well, think about your wording, maybe even like write it down and say, I have to read this to you, because it's going to go better. And worry less about what others think. Like, don't, it's more about what you can do for yourself to be like successful. I mean, a lot of people are really worried about like, I can't believe they saw that, this is about you taking care of yourself and being in charge of your care, and trying to really like be healthy, take care of your health, right? So if you want to have good health and good health care, then it starts with, you know, being treating people you want to, I mean, it's like the golden rule, treating people the way you want to be treated, right? It sounds silly, but I don't know. It seems like I find that effective. And you can ask for a lot of things, um, if you ask for them in a kind and gentle way with a nice tone. And people can still say no, but um, you're going to get heard better if you practice it and use nicer language. Um, and like I said, it does take a lot of practice. So tips, mindfulness is really helpful in every arena. Mindful of everything you're doing, your eating, your drinking, your tone, all that stuff, which again takes practice, but you can practice it anywhere. You can practice it on the bus, you can practice it at dinner, you can practice it while you're participating in this conference. Managing your stress, and that means getting enough sleep, taking care of your body, like getting enough, physical activity, enough, hydration, good nutrition, like, interaction socially, like really taking care of your body, you're going to feel better. And then you're going to be able to better interact with people and manage things better. Everything's better when you're taking care of all your needs. Therapy, if you need it, can be really helpful. And it's available so many different ways now, that I encourage you, if you want or need it, to get it. Talk to somebody, though, like sharing your feelings. A lot of us bottle that stuff in, and it comes out somewhere else. So, I mean, just find a support group, find a place to this is a great outlet here. Find a place to be able to engage with other people that relate to what's going on. And remember to be kind to yourself. You do deserve love and kindness and good care. Routines, I will say, is so critical, with my folks. And then remember, you are the captain of your ship. So be the captain of your ship, because I just really believe in that. Again, just same thing I just said, emotions are real and valid, and all of them are going to happen. So just kind of let them happen. And that's my info. I'm sure they can share the slides if anybody is interested in them. I'm always available for questions whenever. So thanks for having me.